That was called on Asia Wilson.
Yeah, you can see Kelsey Mitchell right there get Wilson in.
The WNBA just gave us a masterclass in total chaos. New footage and reactions are everywhere showing Kelsey Mitchell calling out a Wilson and even the referees. Honestly, it was one of the dirtiest, most rigged-looking games you'll ever see. We're talking cheap fouls, wild technicals. Indiana truly wasn't supposed to survive that. But get this, they completely flipped the script. So, do you think Vegas is panicking right about now? The Aces walked into their home arena expecting a coronation, right? They had the MVP trophy polished. The media was ready to celebrate. And the script was basically written. A.A. Wilson was supposed to just dominate. Becky Hammon was supposed to outsmart Indiana. And the refs, they were apparently supposed to manage things in Vegas's favor. Instead, the night turned into an absolute disaster. It was a total collapse fueled by their own arrogance, some incredibly sloppy play, and honestly, some of the worst officiating I've ever seen in a playoff game.
About this really quick. One of the moments in the game that showed blatant inconsistency, right? And just showed, hey, y'all be paying attention to what y'all want to pay attention to, all right, in the WNBA.
Look, at no level of basketball would anyone call what happened to Kelsey Mitchell a technical foul. She takes contact on a drive, absorbs an arm across her body, finishes the play, and instead of getting the free throw she earned, she gets punished. What? Because the whistle only seemed to work one way. And because if Wilson is on the floor, apparently the rule book just changes. That was the theme of the entire night. One standard for Indiana and a totally different standard for Las Vegas. The Aces came out swinging with everything they had except good basketball. Really, elbows, forearms, flops, you name it. They weren't trying to win cleanly at all. They were just trying to bully. The problem though, Indiana didn't blink. They didn't let the whistles or those cheap shots rattle them. They just tightened up, ran their sets, and punished Vegas every single time they lost focus.
This is a part of what people are tired of, man. Tired of the inconsistencies. And the favoritism that y'all show certain teams with certain jerseys on, man. It's crazy.
From the jump, you could just tell the Fever weren't intimidated. Kelsey Mitchell opened up by relentlessly attacking Belline. She forced the Aces to collapse and then she just punished them when they sagged off. Odyssey Sims was an absolute bulldog on both ends, never letting Chelsea Gray or Jackie Young get comfortable for a second. Aaliyah Boston and Brianna Turner rotated perfectly. They cut off all those easy looks for Volson in the post, forcing her into fadeaways and heavily contested hooks. The Fever weren't just surviving out there. They were dictating the pace of the game. Meanwhile, Vegas looked totally shook. This was the same team that was bragging about being the real Aces just days before. And suddenly they looked completely lost. Every foul call they expected didn't come. Every flop looked faker than the last, and instead of adjusting, they just melted down. Wilson, who hours earlier was handed her MVP trophy, responded by throwing elbows, barking at the refs, and forcing shots that just clanged off the rim. By the end of the night, she shot 6 for 22. MVP numbers not even close. And now, let's talk more about those fouls.
How does the body feel at this time of the year, given all that you in particular have gone through and are always on the floor?
I'm a little sore, I'm not gonna lie. It's catching up to me, but we're gonna just keep getting warm, keep going out there, try to forget about the pain a little bit. But that's the part of the year. That's everyone. Everyone's playing with a little bit of bumps and bruises, and again, you just kind of forget about that in playoffs.
Lexi Hall, man, she spent the entire night getting shoved, elbowed, and knocked to the floor. The screens weren't just illegal. They were practically WWE-level moves. Players stuck out hips, lean shoulders, extended legs to trip her. And yet, whistle after whistle stayed silent. The refs just let it happen. But here's the thing. Instead of whining, Hall just tightened her defense even more. Every possession, she made Jackie Young's life absolutely miserable, forcing her east to west instead of north to south. By the final buzzer, Hall's plus-minus was actually one of the best on the floor. Then came the moment that really summed up the entire mess. Kelsey Mitchell drives to the rim, takes contact from Wilson, finishes the bucket, and suddenly the refs call a technical on Mitchell. Not on Wilson, not on the Aces, on Mitchell. At that point, it was beyond parody. Even Vegas fans couldn't believe it. That wasn't officiating. It was pure theater. A desperate attempt to tilt momentum back to the home team, but you know the ball doesn't lie. Vegas missed free throws and Indiana buried jumpers. Karma showed up faster than the officials could cover their tracks. Mitchell wasn't just scoring, she was making a statement. Every bucket silenced that Vegas crowd. Every three-pointer turned their arrogance into pure panic. By the end of the night, she had 34 points and complete control of the game. No excuses, no bailout whistles, just cold-blooded shot-making. Odyssey Sims matched that energy with veteran composure. She slowed the game when needed, then sped it up when Vegas was reeling. Natasha Howard fought like her career depended on it, cutting off second-chance points and just bodying bigger players inside. And Brianna Turner, she made Wilson earn every single point the hard way. No easy catches, no free spins, just constant physical, disciplined defense. Indiana was supposed to fold. I mean, 6 players were missing. Caitlin Clark was out. Sophie Cunningham unavailable. Sydney Carlson sidelined and their bench was thinner than ever. Analysts dismissed them before tip-off. Commentators called it a mismatch. Becky Hammond herself even declared that Indiana hadn't seen the real aces. Translation: this was supposed to be an easy sweep, but instead of rolling over, the Fever rolled over Vegas. The aces, meanwhile, revealed just how fragile they really are. When Wilson isn't bailing them out with 40-point nights, they just don't know where to go. Chelsea Gray had flashes. Jackie Young hit a few shots, but none of it mattered because Indiana refused to break. And once Wilson hit the bench with foul trouble, Vegas completely collapsed. A 3-point game turned into a 14-point deficit within minutes. That's not championship basketball, that's dependency. And then there's Becky Hammond's post-game spin job. Asked about her team's struggles, she just brushed it off as missed layups and missed chance. That wasn't just denial. It was insultingly lazy. The Fever outplayed her team in every single phase. They defended harder, executed cleaner, and shot better. This wasn't bad luck. It was Indiana being flat out better. But Hammond couldn't admit it. She couldn't say her MVP got outplayed by Aaliyah Boston. She couldn't admit her veterans got clamped by Lexi Hall and Odyssey Sims, so instead she just hid behind cliches. Meanwhile, in the Fever locker room, the energy was totally different. Kelsey Mitchell didn't mince word. She gave respect where it was due, acknowledging Vegas's talent, but she made it clear Indiana came to compete and they weren't going anywhere. Her comments weren't angry rants. They were controlled, confident shots across the. She called out all the nonsense without whining, pointing out exactly how her team fought through dirty play and bad officiating. And that's what made the night so poetic. Vegas had the hardware, the hype, and the headlines. Indiana had heart, toughness, and a refusal to back. By the end of the game, the scoreboard told the story: Fever 89, Aces 73. On their home court on MVP night, the supposed juggernaut was humbled by the 6th seed everyone dismissed. Here's a stat Vegas really doesn't want to hear. In best-of-5 series, 72% of teams that win Game 1 advance. That means Indiana didn't just win. They shifted the odds of the entire series. They turned what was supposed to be a coronation into a full-blown crisis. The irony of this whole night is almost too much. Hours earlier, the cameras were focused on A'ja Wilson, smiling with her MVP trophy, the league's golden child, celebrated as untouchable, unstoppable, the face of women's basketball. And then within a few hours she was missing layups, throwing elbows, and begging refs to bail her out against a Fever team, missing half its roster. The so-called coronation turned into a humiliation. Because when you strip away all the hype in the PR machine, what really matters is what happens on the court. And on the court, the Fever were better, they were sharper, they were hungrier, and most importantly, they were fearless. Take Aaliyah Boston. She doesn't get the spotlight Wilson does, but she put on a defensive masterclass. Wilson went 6 for 22 from the floor because Boston Turner and Howard never gave her an inch. Every post-up was contested. Every spin was met with a wall. Every fadeaway had a hand in her face. Wilson wasn't dominating, she was flailing, and the contrast couldn't be more clear. Boston carried herself with calm and discipline while Wilson just unraveled into flops and frustration. Then there's Lexi Hall again. She might not have filled up the stat sheet, but she made Jackie Young miserable all night. Every cut was denied. Every jumper was challenged. Every drive was walled off. Her plus 24 plus-minus number says it all. Hall was the quiet assassin doing the dirty work while Wilson and Vegas wed for whistles. And if you watched closely, you could really see how much it rattled the Aces. Vegas thought intimidation would work. They thought shoving Jay and flopping would throw Indiana off their rhythm. Instead, it totally backfired. The Fever fed off the disrespect. Every hard foul lit another spark. Every bogus whistle made them tighten up even more. By the end of the night, Indiana was smiling while Vegas looked like the underdog, begging for sympathy. And that's the bigger story here. Vegas has been crowned as the dynasty of the WNBA, right? Multiple titles, star power, all the hype in the world. But dynasties don't melt down when one player has an off night. Dynasties adjust. Dynasties find other ways to win. What we saw wasn't a dynast. It was a house of cards built on Wilson carrying them. Take her out of rhythm and suddenly they're exposed. Meanwhile, Indiana is showing what real team basketball looks like. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't just scoring, she was creating. She found Turner for easy bucket. She drew defenders and kicked to open shooters. She controlled the tempo like a veteran who's been waiting her whole career for this stage. Sims added that steady hand, slowing things down when Vegas tried to bait Indiana into chaos. Howard fought like a warrior in the end. Even the role players shot petty aerial powers. They brought sparks at just the right moments. This is why nobody wants to play the Fever. They're not just hot, they're dangerous because they've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. They're playing with freedom while their opponents are playing with fear. And let's not gloss over the referees either. This game was a disaster for officiating. Technical fouls were handed out like candy. Moving screens were ignored. Flops were rewarded. Blatant shvees were called as nothing. It was as if the refs were working off two different manuals, one for Vegas and one for Indiana. But here's the kicker. Even with all that nonsense, Indiana still won. That's how much better they were. They overcame not just the aces but the stripes too. And that's what made Kelsey Mitchell's post-game words hit so hard. She didn't whine. She didn't cry. She acknowledged Vegas's talent. She respected Wilson's resume, but she made it clear that Indiana wasn't backing down. She called it like it. Indiana played harder, wanted it more, and proved that they belonged. Those words really carried weight because she had just dropped 34 points on the so-called best defense in the league. Now the pressure shifts completely. Vegas, the defending champs, are staring at the possibility of going down 2 on their own floor. That's not pressure. That's pure panic. They've been exposed. Their one-dimensional reliance on Wilson is now obvious. Their defense isn't as sharp as advert. Their composure isn't as steady as the media claimed. And if Indiana comes out in Game 2 with that same energy, this series might be over before it even gets back to Indianapolis. And the funniest part, all the analysts who dismissed Indiana before the series are now scrambling to rewrite their takes. Before Game 1, the Fever weren't supposed to matter. After Game 1, suddenly everyone wants to talk about Indiana's grit and Mitchell's leadership. It's amazing how fast the narrative changes when reality smacks the so-called experts in the face. But fans know the truth. The Fever have been building to this moment all year. They've been through injuries, disrespect, and constant questions about whether they even belonged in the playoff. And now they're 2 wins away from the finals. That's not hype. That's not luck. That's earned. Vegas, meanwhile, has to answer some really uncomfortable questions now. Can they actually win if Wilson doesn't go nuclear? Can Becky Hammon make adjustments instead of just making excuses? Can their so-called depth actually produce when it truly matters? Because right now, all we've seen is a team folding under pressure. Indiana doesn't have those problems at all. They know exactly who they are. They know Mitchell is the closer, Boston is the anchor, Sims is the steady hand, and the role players bring that spark. They trust each other, they empower each other, and that's exactly why they're thriving when everyone else expected them to collapse. Now, by the time the series is done, the Aces might still claw their way back. But no matter what happens, Game 1 exposed the undeniable truth. Vegas isn't untouchable. Wilson isn't flawless, and the referees can't save them from everything. Indiana proved that heart, toughness, and composure can flip the entire script. So, to the WNBA, to the fans, to all those so-called experts, the message is crystal clear. The Fever are here. They're not scared. They're not folding. And if Vegas doesn't figure something out fast, all that dynasty talk is going to sound really silly when the 6th seed is the one celebrating in the finals. The Aces thought this would be easy. Instead, Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever walked into their house, exposed the refs, embarrassed A.A. Wilson, and completely flipped the series on its head. Indiana is now 2 wins away from truly shocking the